friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Elenbaas, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. Today I'm going to share with you how to make your own herbal electuary and elixir. And this is actually kind of two steps in the same process. And I'm excited to share with you how to make these at home in your own kitchen. And I actually have all the ingredients here. So in just a moment, I will pan down, show you the herbs, and we will make it together. Before I dive into today's content, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please click the subscribe button. It helps other people to find my work and to learn more about the power of herbal medicine. So thank you. And if you're new to my channel, welcome in. I have a whole library of information, everything from how to make herbal infusions to my featured herbs of the month, where you can learn in depth both the scientific and folk uses of medicinal herbs. So with that said, I also wanted to mention that I'm teaching a workshop here in Minnesota. I'm local in Minneapolis. And so on February 15th, which is Saturday, I will be teaching a make your own herbal potion workshop at Tonkadale Nursery in Minnetonka, Minnesota. So if you're in the Minnesota area, please head over to tonkadale.com. I'll include a link in the description below. I also wanted to mention that I have a few herbal courses that I teach online, and the next one will begin April 24th, 2025. So if you're interested in studying herbs with me, it's an online course, it's self-paced, and then we meet we meet live in person online. So we meet live together once a month to talk about the herbs of that module and to answer any questions you have about using herbal medicine. So it's a very interactive class, and you get to kind of take the actual modules at your own pace, which a lot of people really like. So you can go to skyhouseherbs.com, click on courses, and I'll include a link below as well. So friends, herbal electuaries. Now, what I'm going to be showing you today, I'm going to be using herbs that are aphrodisiac and circulatory stimulant, herbs that kind of go with the theme of Valentine's Day, or, beating the deep winter blues and awakening our sensual body. So you can use the herbs that I'm using in your blends. I also wanted to say, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't really want to make an herbal blend for love and erotica and sensuality. I want to make one for stress relief, or I want to make one for digestive support. The same recipe can be used, and the same sort of overall parts that I'll teach you can be used to make this same blend with other herbs. So I just wanted to mention that. So you might be wondering, what is an electuary? Isn't it a fun word, electuary? It's kind of a nice one to say. So electuary comes from the Greek word, which means to lick. And you can imagine that something that you would want to lick is something that's going to taste good. So an electuary is simply an herbal powder mixed with honey. And, if you don't use honey, I will say it doesn't quite taste as good with vegetable glycerin. I've tried it. It's not quite as sweet, but you could do that if you were looking for a vegan option. And then you could add in a little bit of stevia to add it or to sweeten it. But for today's recipe, I'm going to show you how to do it with local honey here from the Midwest, and with some of my favorite herbs that really, I think, open up and awaken our erotic body. So let me just scroll down and I'll show you what I have here. So you can see I have my little heart-shaped, aren't these cute? These like little ramekin bowls, and I have 4 herbs out, and I have another one that I might use, but I wanted to just start with 4 herbs and tell you a little bit about them And then you can kind of see what you have in your kitchen, what you might want to powder or buy powdered, and use these in your own blends. So really all the ingredients that you're going to need is you're going to need herbal powders. To use honey, you're going to need some sort of local, I prefer local honey. So this is a unprocessed, unfiltered raw honey. To make the elixir, which is the next step, you're going to need some type of alcohol. I really think brandy is a nice fit for its taste and its strength for making an elixir. And if you don't do alcohol, it's no big deal. You can just stay one step. You can stay with a step of making the electuary and not add in the alcohol. So, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to blend together a variety of powdered herbs, pour honey over top, and then we're going to use these cute little spoons, aren't those cute, to mix it up. And then the electuary simply is powder and herbs. And you can take it by the spoonful. And I actually have one that I've already made right here. I made this one last month. This one is my first try of Herbal Love Honey. It has ginger, cacao, maca, shatavari, cinnamon, licorice in it, and honey. So I just want to show you what it looks like once it's been sitting for a little bit. And if I mix it up, I mean, it's basically honey and herbs. And it's kind of like you want to mix it until it's like a paste like this. So I'm just going to try a little taste of it because I haven't had it in a little while. So like a dosage would be about a teaspoonful. So this is a little less than a teaspoonful. And what you can do with this is just take it right in your mouth like I'm going to do. Or if you had some hot water, you could just mix it into some hot water, right? And then let it dissolve and then drink that. Or if you were making your own herbal tea, let's say you have a chamomile tea or a mint tea, something that you really love, then you could mix it into that hot water. It will dissolve and then there you go. But I'm going to, that's good. That's really good. So this one, what I can really taste is the ginger. And I wanted that ginger flavor to be strong because ginger awakens the palate. It increases salivation. I can really feel like, ooh, I'm like getting a little bit of a hot flash, which is good. Like if you're trying to make something that is going to evoke the senses and passions and pleasures, you need to get warm. Because when you get warm, your blood flow goes to the periphery. That makes your fingertips, your lips, your special organs all a little bit more sensitive. So that's really cool. And so that's what we want to do if we're using it for this particular purpose. So I can feel my body getting really warm and my mouth is tingly, definitely from the ginger and maybe a little bit from the cinnamon. Okay, so we've got that there. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to make it together. I'm going to pan down. So here are our herbs. Now I'm going to recommend that you use a small glass jar, and it could be like a rinsed out small jelly jar, but this is just what I have. I would also recommend that you start off with a small quantity rather than making a huge batch and then not getting to use all of it. I think it's a better idea to just make smaller batches, see how you like it. And then if you want more, then it's easy to make more. So I like to do it in the parts method for this rather than weighing it out. I think it's a lot easier. So I am going to grab a more, this is like a technical teaspoon. This is like a cute teaspoon. I think this is like technically half a teaspoon. So I'm going to use my full teaspoon and I'm going to just add these herbs directly into my jar. And I'll tell you about each one as I go. So I'm going to start with, this is ground rose petals. Let's see if you can, oh, can you see that color? Isn't that beautiful? It's sort of a purpley pink color. So these are organic dried rose petals that have been powdered. And roses are a known medicine for the heart, and not just the emotional heart, which is true, but also the physical heart. So this contains flavonoids, which are really good for supporting the arterial flow of blood, for venous return. And the flavonoids are really good at just protecting the heart, the vessels, the vessels of the circulatory system. So we've got that added bonus. And then emotionally, I think this is such a nice one for so many different blends. If you're doing a blend for depression or grief, or in this case, love, anything that has to do with the heart. And what I love about roses is that they're a symbol of openness as the flower opens, but also of boundaries because of the thorns. So I feel like as a medicine that we're going to add into a love blend, love should have openness and vulnerability, but at the same time also be boundary, knowing where you end and I begin, knowing what is okay for me and not okay. That's all part of this rose medicine. So I'm going to start with, let's just see here. I'm going to measure out, and so you can see there's a little bit of a chunk in there. That's okay. That'll get all mixed up. So this is 1 teaspoon, and I'm going to add it into my jar, and I'm going to do 1.5. Okay. So I've got 1.5 teaspoons of rose petals. And then what I like to do is write it down. That way I know, and this is my recipe that I made for this last one that I made last month here. And I'm just going to flip over and use this side and mark down exactly what I'm using. So I just added in 1.5 teaspoons of rose petal. And the nice thing is if you have the recipe written down, then when you want to remake it or make more, you know exactly what the proportions were. Okay. Now I'm going to use my teaspoon. So you can see like a teaspoon could be like 1 part. So I could say I have 1.5 parts of rose petal powder. The next one I'm going to use is ginger. And you can see this is sort of a golden yellow color. It's kind of like, can't really get the color as nicely with the bright light, but it's kind of like I would call it a golden color. And this one's kind of chunky, which is fine. See how those like little chunks just kind of break down into powder once you touch them. So ginger is an excellent herb to add into any sort of love or circulatory tonic formula because it is a great vasodilator. And I think I mentioned this earlier that, when you're creating a sensualizing herbal blend, you want to have something that's going to increase blood circulation. So this is just the best for that. It's fast acting. The flavor I think is really nice, and it has that nice flushing quality to it, which I think is really nice for this particular purpose. Now you don't need, I'm not going to do the same amount as the rose petal powder. I'm going to say, I'm just going to do 1 teaspoon. I think that's going to be, it's going to still be strong, but it's not going to be overpowering. So that's going to be 1 part or 1 teaspoon of my ginger. Next, I have cacao nib powder. So this is like basically like raw chocolate, theobroma cacao, and it's blended. So there's no added sugar to it. There's, some of the fats and oils have been removed, but we can see that we've got the nibs here. And this is a really wonderful also stimulant in some ways. So we've got the cacao or like we've got the stimulating properties of cacao or chocolate itself. And then we also have, they call this the food of the gods. It's also very nourishing. It has cardiovascular protective qualities. And it's arousing. Chocolate has been given as a Valentine's gift and as a symbol of love. And people have enjoyed chocolate covered fruit during romantic occasions. It's a very sensual plant. And so it's a really nice one to add in. It's also a familiar flavor for many people, and it connects them with the sensual body. So I think it makes a really nice one. And if you're one of those people who you just need a little bit of a pick me up, if you tend to like go to bed early and you're like, I want to stay up a little later, like I want to feel energized, then this is a really nice one to add in. And obviously, if you find there's a tiny bit of caffeine in chocolate naturally. If you find that to be too stimulating, then you may want to opt out and not use this particular one. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do half a teaspoon. So I'm going to do half a teaspoon of my cacao nibs powder, and I'm going to write both of those down. So I did 1 teaspoon ginger and a half teaspoon of cacao. And then over here, this is a green herb. You can kind of see it looks a little greenish brown, but it's kind of a sagey kind of green. And this is Damiana or Turnera diffusa. And these are the leaves that are powdered. And Damiana, I mentioned this in my last video on eroticism and love. And I also have a herb of the month video just all about Damiana. So I'll just say a little bit about it. If you want to learn more, you can listen to those videos. But Damiana is an herb that is really good for awakening the senses. And it's both a stimulant and a relaxant, which is really nice. When we want to be aroused, our physiology, we actually need to be both stimulated and relaxed. We need to feel both aroused and safe and relaxed and be able to, open ourselves to love, right? Or open ourselves to deep conversation wherever your night is going. And so Damiana is really nice at both relaxing, helping us to feel really safe and in our bodies, and at the same time feeling gently aroused and stimulated through our senses. And I love the taste of this herb. There is no other herb in the world that tastes like this. It is wholly unique unto itself. So if you've never tasted it before, do yourself a favor and try it. It is, if I were to describe it, it's kind of a mixture between floral, minty, and wintergreeny. I don't know if that's my best. So like flowers and wintergreen. So I really like this one. So I'm going to do a full teaspoon because I love the flavor, and it just has, my body does really well with Damiana. So I'm going to add in a full teaspoon. I'm going to write that down. 1 teaspoon Damiana. Now you could stop right here with these 4 herbs. You don't have to do more than this, but you may decide you want to. Now, in general, in formulating, there's a few different kind of schools of thought. So I know that. So when I was studying herbal formulation, I remember one of my teachers said, think about like the different shapes in nature. And so a triangle, when you use 3 herbs, the triangle is the shape of change. It's the shape of fire. So it's very dynamic. There's always a lot, triangulation, right? So when you have 3 herbs, there's movement. When you have 4 herbs, it creates more stability. Like the foundation of most houses, even the pyramids, is a square. So square is representative of the element earth. It's very grounding, very stabilizing. So if you want a formula that is very grounding and stabilizing, use even numbers. And if you want a formula that's going to be more movement oriented and a little bit, creating a little more change, then use odd numbers, because 5 is also going to create a shape where there's more movement. So I think for today, I'm going to stick with 4. But if I wanted something like, I think this last blend that I did, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did 6 as well. So I have 6 in this one. I'm going to do 4 in this one. I guess my subconscious is asking for more grounding. So that's what we're going to do. So I've got my herbs here. The next part is really simple, everyone. You're just going to pour honey on top. Now, if you really want to get technical and measure it out, you can use about 1/4 cup of honey. What I'm going to do is just squeeze my honey in. And then I'm going to start mixing it till it gets to the consistency I want. And that saves me from having to rinse out another container. So you can see here, it's, you don't want that dry powder exposed to the air. You want everything to be mixed in. And oof, I can smell it. Can you see okay, you can see almost like smoke coming up. So the powder is, as I'm mixing it, the powder is dispersing into the air. It smells really good. This actually looks perfect. Look at me. One time wonder. Sometimes, some days you get lucky. Some days you have to do it a lot over and over and over. All right, add a little more, add a little more. But this to me looks good. I want something a little thick. So I want to just make sure all of those, like the powdered balls, you can see there's still a few in there. I'm going to just mash those against the side. That smells good. All right. And then what I like to do is take a little taste of it just to see how I like the flavor, see how I like the consistency, and then I can decide if I want to add more or less. So I'm going to take my tasting spoon. Ooh, that's good. Mm. Oh yeah, that ginger. Don't need more. Didn't need more than that. So 1 teaspoon is good, but I like that zing. I want an effect. I want something I can feel. Oh, and I'm getting that warm flush again, which is really nice. I think I think I might add, I feel like I want to add a little bit more cacao. So remember how I did half a teaspoon? I'm going to X that out and I'm going to add in another half teaspoon of a little more cacao because I don't really taste it. I can taste the Damiana. I can taste the ginger. I'm going to add a little more honey now because it's going to be a little too thick. So I just added about a tablespoon more honey. And I'm going to mix that cacao in there. And it's going to make this beautiful kind of thick paste. So what you can do is stop right here, and then this can be your electuary. And you can take this by the teaspoonful, when you just want to sit and cozy up and read a book or take a hot bath, or, you're going out dancing or you're staying home and dancing. You could even take this, before you go for a walk in the woods, just something to awaken your sensual body. And you could also take it before a date, or, if you and your partner have, a quiet night at home, or you're going out for, a party, you could take like a good teaspoon of this before you go out and you'll feel it. It'll instantly hit you, especially that ginger. And it's so good on a cold, here in Minnesota, these cold winter nights, to just have something that's going to really warm your hands and feet, warm your lips, and all of your best parts. So to store it, all you need to do is put your lid back on. So you just take your lid, store it, and then you can put this in your refrigerator. It will last usually up to about a year. I've had some of these last longer, and the reason is because honey is a preservative, and then the herbs with volatile oils like ginger and Damiana also are preservative in themselves. So I would say, like, try to use it within a year and you should be good to go. Obviously, if there's any mold on it, then it means it's gone bad. But typically a year is about, that's typically a solid amount of time that you can use this. I can also feel my digestion starting to activate too, which is good. It's getting to be close to lunchtime. So the next thing I need to do is label this, and I will do that on my own time, but this is just, it doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be a sticker label where you write in everything that you have in here. And then, this is my recipe. So I'm going to just hold on to this, put this on a note card in my recipe box so I can have it. And then I'm going to give it a name too. I don't know. What am I going to name it? The first one I called Herbal Love Honey. This one I'm going to call Rosey Spirits Honey, because I can really taste the rose petals. Okay. So that's the electuary. Now, to make an elixir, which is a more liquid base, honestly, all you're going to do is pretty much the same thing, but you are going to add in some brandy. So let's go ahead and make another batch. I'm going to bring in a different herb. This time I'm going to bring in horny goatweed, or epidemium. I always called it epidemium, but it's probably epimedium. Whatever. Tomato. So we are going to now blend into this 1 cup Pyrex just to make it easier. And then I can pour this into, let's say, a 2-ounce dropper bottle. I could also put it into a fancy, like pretty little bottle that maybe I saved or found at a thrift store. You could put it into anything. So we're going to follow the same recipe. I am going to, let's see, I'm almost out of ginger. So let's just see. I'm going to use up what I have. So this is about half a teaspoon of ginger. I'm going to write this down. Half teaspoon ginger. This one's going to be a little more chocolatey, I think. So here's 1. Yeah, that's good. 2. We have 2 teaspoons of cacao. Here's my rose petal. And here's 1. It's a little shy, but we'll call it 2. It's pretty close. 2 teaspoon rose. And then here's the delicious Damiana. There's 1 and 2. Perfect. Stack these pretty little guys right there. Write down 2 teaspoon Damiana. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cover it with honey, but I'm going to make it a little bit more, like a little bit less pasty and a little bit more runny, because when we add in the brandy, we don't want it to be too thick. It's going to make it a little bit harder to mix. So here I am. Oh, you can see that beautiful red color from the rose. You can see already it's like getting to be too pasty. That just means I need more honey. So an elixir is basically honey and so infused honey and brandy or an alcohol. Now, if you don't like a thicker consistency for an elixir and you want something like really thin and doesn't have the grains in it like you're going to get with a powder, you can also do an herb infused honey and then strain it. So then you couldn't use powdered herbs, but let's say you could use, chamomile flowers or, whole rose petals. This looks good. I want it a little more thin. So I'm going to add some more honey. So it's really more of a consistency thing. With the Electuary, it's really more of like what you personally like in terms of thickness. But I really want it, yeah. See how it's like, that's what I want. I want it to pour like that. Okay. So here is my honey infused herbal Electuary. And then I'm going to do equal parts honey and brandy. So you can see here in my Pyrex, this is kind of the nice thing about using a Pyrex to do this, is you can see how much you have. So I'm going to try to scrape it down so we can get to where we're at. So it looks to me like if I look on this side, it's about a 1/4 cup. So you see that right here? So I have about a 1/4 cup of my honeyed herbs. Set that here. And then for brandy, I mean, you can really use any kind of brandy. I use E&J Grand Blue. I mean, I think the Grand Blue is just a little more expensive. And so I just was like, I don't want like the bottom shelf brandy, but I don't want the top shelf brandy either, because, like to me, the taste doesn't matter. Obviously, you can go within your price range, whatever feels good. So this is, I would say, kind of like mid-range. And I'm just going to fill it up to about 1/2 cup till I get to the 1/2 cup. Yep, there we go. And again, this is going to be a bit of a consistency choice for you as well. So I'm going to just mix this together. And one trick that I found that's really nice for getting these two to blend is adding them, placing it over the stove and adding just a little bit of heat. Now, the problem is that you don't want to heat the honey too much because the honey has live active enzymes that are really good for our health, for digestion, for immunity. So we don't want to kill off those active live enzymes. And if you turn up the heat too high, then you'll damage them. But if you add just a little bit of heat, like turn your burner, if you have an electric one, just turn it on to warm. And if you have a gas burner, you might want to put do like fill a small saucepan with some water and then set this in the water. So you have like a water bath surrounding it, and this isn't exposed directly to the gas. And then when you add that heat, it just helps them to blend a little bit. And again, just slightly warm to help the honey melt. But you can see here, this has become pretty liquidy. There's really not much. You can see on the spoon, there's still a little bit of powder stuck to it, but more or less, I have a pretty nice liquid. And as I mentioned, this liquid is going to be thick. So, like don't expect it to be like a clear syrup. This isn't going to be like an elderberry syrup. This is going to be more like a thicker elixir. And then what you'll do with this is what I did with my other potion is just add it. I like to add it to a dropper bottle. You do have to shake it really well because the powder does settle. And I just want to show you what it looks like so you can see the consistency in a dropper. So it's going to look thick and like honey. So do you see that? Now I have cinnamon in this one. You can see that red color. Isn't that pretty? So you can see that it's kind of like it's like a very liquidy kind of honey syrup. Okay. And it's delicious. Tastes really good. So how do you use the elixir? Good question. So for the elixir, what I like to do is just take it directly into your mouth. So you can just take, I don't want to overdose myself here with all these herbs, because I've got work to do. I can't just be lounging around today. But I would just take this directly into my mouth, maybe half an hour before any planned activities or before bed. Up to an hour before, but I wouldn't do it much earlier than that. You could also take it right before you go to bed. That would be fine too, as long as it doesn't have cacao, because that might keep you up. But, I would say 30 minutes to an hour before your activity of choice, if you know what I mean. You could also add this to hot water and mix it just like you would with the electuary, or you could add it to a tea. This can also be good in hot cocoa. So you could mix this into a cup and make some like love cocoa, love hot chocolate, and that can be really good. I did want to mention one thing that you all can do with the powders, because if you are like me and when you buy herbal powders, you buy them in bulk. This is a 4-ounce bag of powder. Then you will have extra. And what you can do that I might do in another episode, but I'm definitely going to do it over Valentine's Day, is make herbal chocolates. So you mix your powder in the same way, and then you melt dark chocolate in a hot water bath. And then like use a double boiler, and then you mix in the herbal powder, and then you pour them into chocolate molds or candy molds, put them in the freezer. I like to sprinkle a little bit of rose petals and sea salt on it, and maybe a little lavender flowers, put it in the freezer, and then pop them out of the molds, and you have like beautiful herbal chocolates. I didn't mention what this herb is for, did I? I don't think I did. I think I skipped over that. So this is horny goatweed, or epimedium, and this is another aphrodisiac herb. It got its name obviously from watching goats frolic and become frisky after eating this herb. So this one is also an aphrodisiac, a little more stimulant. It's often used in men's formulas for erectile dysfunction because it really stimulates blood flow to the genitals, but it can be used for women too. So it's not just for men. This can be used for both. And I do find that, I think ginger does something very similar as well. So if you don't want to buy a bag of this, you can use ginger for very similar effect. Okay. But this is kind of a fun one. Plus the name is really fun, and you can tell your friends, there's horny goatweed in my chocolates. Right. And that's kind of fun. So those are the herbs I have for you today. I would love to hear what you think. If you're going to try to make some of these electuaries or try to make an elixir for yourself, these elixirs will last for, I would keep these in the refrigerator for probably 6 months to a year as well. But I always like to say, try to use everything you make within a year. I think that's a good rule of thumb, unless you're making like a huge batch of tincture. But otherwise, that will help you to move through your herbs and not have things go to waste. So this can be refrigerated, taken as you need to. And yeah, and let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed these last few talks on the erotic and the erotic body and just ways of increasing our sensitivity to our sensual nature. So I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.